can. Ding. Hello, I'm officially starting us. My name is Mina Luxinger, and I am the School-Based Services Transformation Team Lead for the National Training and Technical Assistance Center for Child, Youth, and Family Mental Health. We are so glad that you're joining us today to hear my friend Angie's story and her mom's story. I think you're really going to enjoy what she has to share. Our time today is sponsored and funded by SAMHSA, but all of the views that we discuss today are our own and the views of the presenter and don't represent the views of our funders. And disclaimer number 2, and this is a really important one. This presentation includes content that may be activating for survivors of trauma, abuse, suicide loss. And if you're an individual like me who's living with mental health challenges or mental health superpowers, depending on the day, please center yourself and your own wellness and consider if you are in a space to participate today. And to the person who just messaged me to ask if I am Susan's daughter, yes, I am. And please tell my mom hi next time you see her. So shout out to my mom. So who is Entac? We are a multidisciplinary team of the nation's leading professionals in mental health, equity, pediatrics, youth advocacy, family advocacy. We also have partners at Georgetown, the Center for Human Development, and the University of Texas, all coming together to improve outcomes for children, youth, and families with emotional and behavioral health needs or superpowers. And we want to be sure that everyone can access evidence-based, culturally responsive and aware treatment and recovery in a well-coordinated system of care, which is a little bit what Angie will be talking about today. So who are the school-based team? You might have heard me say I was the lead. We are the connection point from classroom to care. We are how students who may be in need get to a clinical provider. So one of our audience is community-based providers that partner with school or education communities. We also partner with a lot of state leaders, and we also partner with education and school professionals. But you aren't here to hear about that today. Today, you're here to learn through storytelling. So what will today feel like for you? Because a lot of the learning events we go to as adults are we're going to give you information and citations and academic research. And we're going to do that. We're going to do a little bit of that. But what today is mostly going to feel like is learning through the wisdom of someone else's lived experience, who also has a really interesting professional lens as to tell you this story. Angie's a licensed social worker, so she has a really interesting dual lens. And she also works in a school for students with high emotional and behavioral health needs, as well as being the daughter and now guardian of a person living with, in Nebraska, they call it severe and persistent mental illness. So you heard me say that about Angie, that she is approaching this story with a lot of different hats. And as you're listening, you might notice that you have a lot of different hats as well. And as she's telling your story, you might feel inspired, activated, challenged, or thoughtful in a different way depending on the hat you're wearing. So if you'd like to ask a question or provide a comment, just tell us what hat you're wearing so we know how to respond. If this is your first time using Zoom in a while, you're very lucky. I'm jealous of your life and I want it. These are some tech tips. We love the interaction, and Angie especially, anyone who's sharing their story, it helps if they can see your face. If you would benefit from closed captioning, we have accessibility. Simply click on accessibility for closed captioning, simply click below on the bar, auto captioning. And if today ends unexpectedly for any reason, we will not reconvene. We will send out information on how you can sign up to attend again. And if you were impacted by the time snafu today, we are recording today, so you will be able to watch again at a later time. All right, that's it. You don't have to hear from me anymore. Go ahead and put in the chat box who you are, where you're coming from, and what brings you here today. And I will hand it over to Angie while you do that. just gonna copy this, Ange, and then I'm gonna hand it right over to you.
All right. Oops. Let's see.
Thank you, Adriana, for starting us off. And go for it, Angie. Nope, I didn't do it right. Yes, third time's the charm. Okay.
There we go.
We're all living and learning in 2022 still.
So please forgive me if you ask a question. Even though I am a mom and have multiple children and have just as many hats as Yasmina, it is very difficult for me to read the comments and the questions and speak. So I have people who will help me do that. And I am so grateful.
I'm keeping an eye.
So grateful. And in addition, I just want to say to everyone, I am so grateful that all of you came to hear my story. I'm humbled. And to just second what Yasmina had mentioned about trigger warning, I do say harsh things sometimes, and I will be very raw and very honest.
Ground meat, I was gonna make some spaghetti.
I don't say this to intentionally trigger anyone. I say it because many of us are helping professionals. Many of us work within this field. And if we are triggered, that is an opportunity for us to grow. It's an opportunity for us to look within. It's an opportunity for us to challenge our own biases and learn from that. So some of these triggers are meant for that. If you need to take space, please do. No one will judge you. If they do, then that's probably something that they need to look at. So stories that matter. Also, this is my story. I'm not uncomfortable telling it because it's mine and I have worked through much of it, many years, much in therapy, with friends, with my family. So please just sit back and listen. And if you have any questions, please ask. Oh, it did not work. There we go. So that is my family. I am married with 4 children, and I actually have 2 dogs, but this Simpson photo was done before the 2 dogs. My grandmother lives with me, and let's see, my kids, they are, the youngest is 2, Iris. I have the 5-year-old in the middle, the 7-year-old with the Hulkbuster blue hair, and the 14-year-old snuggling with Zeke, our dog. I am a licensed clinical social worker, and I am also the guardian and conservator of my mother, who is the woman of the hour today. That is my mother, Renee, and that little cutie patootie right there is me. So I would like you all to meet Renee, my mother. Oh, and I did forget to mention she's crazy. Now, I know you might be thinking, what? You're a licensed clinical social worker. I don't think that's PC. And you might be right. However, I would like for you to look at the definition. Crazy. 1, offensive, having or showing severe mental illness. 2, unable to think in a clear or sensible way. 3, wild and uncontrolled. I do think it's important to consider the 4th definition that I personally have added into my own world. A part of each one of us, a way of life. For the longest time, crazy was a trigger word for me. It was, I'm not crazy, don't call me crazy. And I think one of the biggest takeaways that if I want you to take anything from this is that once we can learn to embrace our own crazy, we can then learn to embrace the crazy in others. And that can mean so many things to different people. So I just kind of want you to sit with that, see what that means for you. For me, it completely revolved around my relationship with my mother. So let's find out, who is Renee? She was an honors student, graduated a year early, well-liked amongst the community, just stunningly beautiful. The youngest of 3 children, had 2 older brothers. She entered the Marines when she was 19. Her father, my grandfather, and her two older brothers also entered the Marines, so she followed suit. She has a laugh that is kind of a cross between a cackle and a power tool. It used to embarrass the hell out of me. I used to beg my friends and my family to not make my mom laugh. Now it's really become just a staple of who she is. And it's not embarrassing at all. In fact, I try to make her laugh because I don't know, it warms my heart. And her love language is gift giving. My mother will gift anyone anything. If you have ever been my friend and have met my mother, she will buy you a gift. My neighbor for Christmas got a gift from my mom because she's met her a couple times. My mom would give her shirt off of her back to anyone who needed it. She would give you shoes. She would sacrifice anything just to make you happy. So for funsies, because my mom likes to provide so many random gifts that I don't know what to do with, some of them, kind of stolen from facilities she's been at, like books and magazines, others, things that she has purchased. Her current retirement community, she sadly loves it when people die because then she can go through all of their things and decide what she thinks I want. I can tell you every now and again, she nails it. Most of the time, not so much. So number 1, we have dragon knife. Number 2, we have Wild Country Avon antiperspirant roll-on. Number 3, a giant Chewbacca Pez dispenser. Number 4, an adult child's guide to what's normal. Number 5, the Action Bible. Number 6, a decorative rock. Number 7, an Elvis Presley knife. And number 8, Arnold Schwarzenegger's autobiography. Please submit your votes. This is my favorite game to play.
Oh, we've got votes coming in. About half the people. We got a lot of contenders for a child's guide to what's normal. About 15 people think your mom did not buy that for you. We
or
have
gift it, rather.
Yeah, or gift it. Yeah, I guess a lot of your mom's treasures are found. Oh, we have some votes in the chat box. Couple more for number 4.
There was one time where she gifted my husband a Marine Corps flag, which is so fantastic because he was not in the Marines. He was not in anything, but she just felt like he needed
to belong to something. All right. I'm going to end the poll and you should be able to see the results. There we go.
All right. So do we want to know like the correct answer or do we? Okay. So the correct answer is number 3, the Chewbacca Pez dispenser. 3 people got that. That my husband purchased as a huge Star Wars fan. Number 1, my favorite, the dragon knife. Kid you not, my mom purchased this for my husband for Father's Day from one of the folks that lived at the mental health facility that she was at. She did a lot of trading. And this, I don't know if it was a traded item, but she got it, gave it to my husband, and then 2 years later, gifted him another dragon knife, the exact same knife. I have never seen this knife in my life, but it's something that I never want to get rid of. And yes, all of those other things she has also gifted us, along with the entire collection of Avon's Wild Country, the antiperspirant, the spray, what have you. You want it, you can have it. It's yours. Let's see, I can't. There we go. How do I?
Here, we'll go forward, Angie.
There we go.
There you go.
Okay. But to say I had everything I ever wanted growing up would not be accurate. As a child, I guess after my mom got discharged from the Marines, she met my father. I take that back. They met in the Marines. Then they got married after she was discharged. Aren't they cute? They then had my older brother, Sean Patrick, September of 1980. He unfortunately passed away 3 months later on December 21st of 1980. 11 months after that, they had the most amazing baby girl with all that cutesy little hair. Look at her. Look at her. That's me, by the way, in case you couldn't tell by my glee. They then separated from one another. One of the most difficult situations to keep couples together is the loss of a child. So shortly thereafter, they separated, and my mom ended up caring for me primarily, even though my father had rights. Unfortunately, during this time, CPS was called many times due to neglect. My mom would leave me in an apartment and just go shopping. I would be there in the middle of winter, completely nude, diaper full, no one watching me, just kind of left to fend for myself. So at around 13 months of age, I then lived primarily with my father. And of course, all of these CPS reports, as we have grown accustomed to, were unfounded. Being in the system, I can see how they were unfounded. Being on the other side, however, it is difficult sometimes. So during that time, I did live primarily with my dad, just me and daddy. I didn't have much contact with my mom. My mom had several psychiatric hospitalizations after this. I was born in New York, and my mom would hitchhike from New York to Nebraska a bunch under the handle Foxy Lady. And again, like I said, multiple psychiatric hospitalizations. This is one that I think gives you an idea of where she was at that point in her life. I'll just read a few bits from it, but she was hearing voices telling her to kill her mother. She was picked up while she was writing a Bible. And the voices were telling her to go to hell, or they are going to take your child. She also had somatic delusion that she was 10 months pregnant and that the unborn child was a product of immaculate conception. So she was not in a good place. And this was in 1983 when that had happened. Shortly after her release from that psychiatric hospitalization, she and my grandparents decided to kidnap me from my father and drive me across state lines to Nebraska. This was during a time where Amber Alerts weren't this huge thing, and my parents were still married, so my mom had every right to take me wherever she wanted. This was unfortunately the last time I ever saw or spoke to my father. Side note, I did notice that there was a participant in here named Angelina. You have a fantastic name.
There's also a participant here named Joel Stevens, and I had to make sure it wasn't your spouse.
Is it my spouse?
It is not your spouse. I don't
There's a
think so.
Joel Stevens here that's not my husband?
Yes.
Shut up. Make
Hello.
yourself
Hello,
known,
Joel
sir.
Stevens #2. He's probably, sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, sir. I just thought it was husband, whose name is also Joel.
It is fun. For those of you who don't know me, my husband is a writer for a newspaper. And one time he did a story.
Angie, it's Jordan.
Oh, it's Jordan. Hi, Jordan. That's my brother-in-law.
So it is her husband in another body. Okay, got it. Thank you, Jordan.
He did a story. Okay, my mouse. Jordan. Oh my God, you can hear me. So schizoaffective disorder is what my mom was.
Sorry, there was a request. We got totally derailed. I'm going to back us up. We're going to edit this part out. We all got excited. Abby asked if you could repeat the last bit about when your grandparents and mom came and kidnapped you from New York.
Yes. So I was 2.5 years old, and the way I have heard this story is that my grandparents draped a towel over the rental car. Also had my 8-year-old aunt in the car, who is one of my favorite people, but I love that she was present on this because she thought it was just a family vacation. And they had picked up my mom and they went into the apartment where my dad was living. And he was a young father, so he struggled to maintain jobs. There was drug use, but he took care of me as best as he could for, where he was at in his life. And my mom came in and snatched me up while my father was cleaning the apartment, and she yelled, "My baby," which gave it all away. And then they ran out the door, and kind of one of the saddest childhood stories that I had been told was apparently I was in the back window as we were driving off, and my dad was chasing the car saying, "Bye, Daddy, bye." Knowing that was the last time I saw him, that's always a hard thing. But then they drove to Niagara Falls. So apparently I saw Niagara Falls at 2.5, don't remember. But I have the Canadian dollars to prove it. So she was diagnosed officially with schizoaffective disorder, which for those of you who may not know, is a mental health condition, which includes schizophrenia and a mood disorder. For my mom, it looked like paranoid schizophrenia plus bipolar. So she had auditory hallucinations and had voices telling her different things, but she also had the extreme highs and lows that come with the mania, grandiose thinking, as well as the deep, deep depression. So I don't necessarily want to have a breakout session, but I do want each of you to maybe jot down or just have a couple thoughts in the back of your mind of what comes to your mind when you think about someone diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, because it is important that we check in with our biases often. And in today's busy society, we aren't always afforded those opportunities. So by knowing what we think about, we can then realize how we may or may not interact in a helpful or non-helpful way. I can tell you, I gave this presentation live, and for one of the guys, he said he thinks of Mountain Dew and cigarettes. And I can tell you for my mom, it was Dr. Pepper and cigarettes. It's very prevalent in her world. And, from my experience, is very common in the world of severe mental health.
Got some good responses coming in the chat, Angie. Adriana shared, I kicked us off with challenging, just in case folks were going to try and be nice. Adriana shared erratic, roller coaster, unpredictable, and stressful if not in treatment. Yep. Disconnection from reality. And Brooke has a really good comment. It must be so scary for them. And I really like that. And I want folks to hang on to that.
Brooke, you're miles ahead. I love that.
Because for Brooke.
If everyone could put themselves in the shoes of the person experiencing the psychosis or that moment or that difficult feeling and emotion, we would all be better off. So thank you, Brooke, for acknowledging that. I appreciate that.
There's a lot of good stuff. Oh, now we're really kicking off here. Kids in the home are scared but confused because they love their family. From Andrea. Dana said it's unpredictable how they will react. It can be painful for family members when they don't want help. Cheryl shared that it can feel like behavior chaos. Heather, I just love the poignancy of it. Shared lost. Why bother? Self-medicating, rocking chairs. Children become protectors, scared, void, and lost.
Man, you guys are amazing. Look at
the group
awesome.
Today.
So insightful. So for me, I want to play you a quick clip of a phone conversation between my grandmother and my mom in 1990. As a child, this is what schizoaffective disorder sounded like to me. It's a few clips jumbled together, and I hope it plays and you can hear it. So let's go ahead and see.
Hello, Mom.
Yeah.
There's something real bad going on here. Because Joy traveled across the country to find me here.
Yeah.
And he traveled past Dad and everybody.
Yeah.
And they body demoned him up with the body demon.
Yeah.
And so I picked up Grandpa to get the body demon off of him.
Yeah.
And now the sun's gone down in Arizona. And my dad's been in on this the whole time. The sun went down in Arizona.
Yeah, I know you are.
Well, Joey showed up with a body demon in him
Yeah, I know.
from traveling across New York to here. And what's my dad doing?
Well, I don't know.
Joey
But
shows up with a body demon in him.
he says that he will come with you and help you, and so
It wasn't from Tony, it was from my dad.
he's afraid too that you go to court, you're gone.
Huh?
Yeah.
Don't call Marilyn, okay? Come on, because Joey kicked the heaven out of my eyes with the body demon that took over my body.
Yeah.
And Tori keeps driving through my left eye all the time to start this shit with Rex. And Marilyn pulls the same shit, so don't call it Marilyn and Tori either.
No, I don't have to.
And don't call it Marlis either if Bob's going to be a body demon and whatever he is.
So we are going to go into breakout rooms after the next video, but I want you all to pause for a moment, and I want you to put yourself in Renee's shoes and think about what she might be feeling, and just keep that in mind for when we see the next video.
I also, on that, think it would be helpful, especially for you educators and helping professionals, to think about me as a young child, and had that conversation been between her and I, and then I had to go to school. So around 3 or 4, I resided with my mom. It was about age 3 when I realized that my mom was different. And I blame this toddler epiphany on the sole fact that my memories really began around 3. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure I would have known well before then. At age 4, my mother and I moved out of my grandparents' home and into our own apartment in Papillion, for those of you from Nebraska. During that time, my mom was trying to go to school, trying to get an education, and I was to and from kinder care. She and I would walk across this large field. She'd drop me off and I'd come home. I don't have a ton of memories from this time in my childhood, but there is one memory that really always stuck out for me. And it was, we lived on the 2nd floor in an apartment building, and the stairs at that time weren't those cushy stairs that you see in apartments now that are super padded and carpeted. No, these were those cement stairs. So I was on the 2nd floor landing, playing with a little boy around my same age, and I don't even know what led up to this, but he pushed me down the stairs. And don't worry, my face broke my fall on the cement on the bottom, so it was great. Obviously, I was in pain and tearful, and through my tear-soaked eyes, I see my mom stomp out of our 2nd floor apartment and shove this boy down the stairs. And I don't know if you guys remember, this boy was also around 4 or 5, same age. She shoves him down the stairs. We are both now crying, singing in a beautiful duet at the bottom of the stairs. His mom comes stomping out of her apartment, and my mom and his mom engaged in this dialogue that would make Jerry Springer blush. It was very intense, and left us alone at the bottom of the stairs without comfort. We ended up having to comfort one another and getting up, and just like kids do, we just went off and played together, because I think both of us realized we both were living similar lives and found solace in one another. Looking back on that scenario, especially as a mother, I can certainly look at that with judgment and with disgust, with shock. However, I think it's really important that we look at it from my mother's perspective, from a completely different perspective. I mean, what was she doing in that moment? She was protecting me. She was coming to my aid. Now, is it what I wanted? Is it what I needed? No. But did she protect me the best way she knew how? Yes. And I think sometimes we forget to see the motives behind it. Because if I can see her motive is to protect me, then I can work with that and teach her healthier ways to do that. I can say that majority of my memories from that apartment, like I had said before, were at kinder care. I remembered eating beans there. I remembered playing with friends there. I remembered napping with my Mickey Mouse blanket and Mickey Mouse pillow because my birth date is the same date as Mickey Mouse's. So apparently Mickey Mouse was a real big deal in my childhood. But I don't have a lot of memories from living with my mom. And I think that's because it was scary. There were so many terrifying moments in that home. And I know some of them from repressed memories that have come up since, and I know some of them stories from my grandmother, one of which was towards the end of us living there. My mom had locked her and I in the apartment for 2 weeks and was having a psychotic break. And my grandparents hadn't been able to get in the house. She had deadbolted it, and they had to cut the deadbolt with bolt cutters in order to free me from that prison. And I'm thankful that I don't necessarily remember all those, but I think it is important that we consider that when we work with children that we do, because sometimes their reactions and their tendency towards feeling a certain type of way is related to something that they don't remember because of the trauma associated with it. So once my grandparents freed me from my mother, they then took guardianship of me, which then leads me to my second kidnapping, the kidnapping from elementary school. My mother came and got me and kept me hidden from my grandmother and grandfather for several, or I don't know, I think it was a week, 2 weeks, during which time I experienced, again, a lot of things that were uncomfortable, that gave me nightmares. And grandma had to fight for me, had a cigarette burn on my cheek, which I don't remember that incident. But second, two kidnappings. Had anyone else kidnapped twice in their life? No? Is it just me? So from this point, once my grandma finally got me back and put a lot more precautions in place, my life kind of settled down. My relationship with my mom slowly picked back up. It was more of like a divorced parent relationship where I would go and visit. We'd have, sometimes infrequent, sometimes frequent communication. The evidence of my disorganized attachment with my mother became even more apparent as the stability of living with my grandparents became my life. I both loved my mother and I feared her. I think she's the most beautiful woman on the planet, but I am absolutely ashamed to be around her in public. I want to give you an example of a phone conversation between my mother and I. Again, 1990, I was 8. And these were the typical kind of conversations we would have. When she refers to Bobby, she is speaking of my step grandfather who raised me with my grandma.
Talk to Angelina. Let me talk to Angelina.
Why do you have to go to the courtroom?
Huh?
Why do you have to go to the courtroom?
Honey, why did you hand the phone to Grandma? Why did you pick up the phone and hand the phone to Grandma? You just get yourself in more trouble. You pick up the phone, you talk to me. Now you're in more trouble for handing the phone right to Grandma. You want to come home to Mommy? Do you?
I don't
Honey,
know.
answer me truthfully. Do you want to come home? What's Bobby doing?
He's right next to me.
What's he doing?
Nothing.
Is he playing with you?
No.
Are you okay there?
Yeah.
You're okay in that house?
Yes.
You're not okay in that house. Why don't you just admit it and tell me to come get you? You want me to come get you? Say,
No. No.
Are you sure you're okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's important for you guys to understand the context. My mother had been MIA for about 2.5 weeks. My grandparents hadn't been able to find her anywhere. She wasn't answering the phones. She was supposed to be in a psychiatric unit, but she had checked herself out, and they were scared. They were nervous because her husband at the time was trying to make a case against her. When she got on the phone with me, initially, my grandma wanted to talk to her. So grandma said, let me talk to her, because she hadn't talked to her. So that's why I handed the phone to my grandma. And then I got in trouble from my mom for handing the phone to grandma. It's important to see that and hear that, because it's hard to know what rules to always follow when you love several people and they're pulling you in different directions, especially when with my mom, the rules changed consistently. From one day to the next, they were never the same. One day I was fine doing X, Y, and Z. The next day I'm the devil's daughter because I looked at her wrong. And it was very difficult to manage that.
Can I ask a question, Angie?
Yes.
I'm just going to pause you here because this time we're not going into breakout groups. And so I know that people probably have a few questions or some thoughts about what they just saw. So I'm going to start off with one. I heard you say that it was hard to know what rules to follow when the rules were constantly changing. Did you find school to be like a place of refuge for you?
Yes, very much. Because school was predictable. School was probably one of the most predictable places that I had. I knew what to expect. I knew how to succeed. I knew what I needed to do to perform, and I could be whatever I wanted to be. I could tell any story I wanted. I could not tell any story I wanted. Some of that is good, some of that not so much, and we'll get to that later when I talk about what helping professionals and education professionals what I needed, what I wish they had known. But yes, I found it very safe. Well, except for when I was in kindergarten and kidnapped by my mom from school.
Well, Adriana, speaking of, asked, did you protect your mother, and did you feel like a mother to your mother?
So that's a great question. And I always say the age 12. By 12 years old, I realized I was more of a mom to my mother than she was ever really going to be able to be to me. And I gave up on that idea of trying to please her and just tried to learn how to manage that relationship and survive. So I protected her in a sense that I loved her, and I didn't want to be stuck in the middle of the grown-up drama, but I often did get stuck in the middle because I was involved on both sides. So my mom would frequently yell at me and complain about my grandma and say, how could I love her? And she's a raging bitch and I can't stand her. And then on the other side, grandma would talk to me about her frustrations with my mom, or she and my grandpa would talk about it and how mentally ill my mom is and how she wasn't taking her meds. And damn it, Renee, you know, you're supposed to be here and why aren't you doing this? And so
This is a familiar sounding experience. If anyone in here has maybe known, experienced, or been a child of divorce. I'm never gonna know what this experience was like for you in totality. But even knowing like a tiny glimmer of how stressful just like one aspect of your experience must have been, is giving me pause to consider, how would I set up my office differently for my students, knowing the different burdens they're carrying.
Yeah. And yeah, so it's, I think even, parents that get divorced, it's definitely one of my triggers is when parents include the kids in that drama or use the kids in that drama. And obviously it's my own personal experiences. Shall I move on, or are there more questions okay. So to just kind of segue even farther, I said the 12 years old piece. As a teenager, I was no longer, about that relationship with my mom. It was more about what my mom could give me. She would buy me Zima. I'm aging myself. She would buy me wine coolers. She would let me smoke in her apartment. If she bought herself a new stereo and I wanted it, all I'd have to do is say, Mom, can I have that? And she'd give it to me. So it was really me using her. During this time, my grandma had fought really hard to label my mom an incapacitated person, which then my grandmother not only became the guardian of me, but also my mother's guardian, which is good fun. So my mom, in 1998, I was a teenager. She had her third suicide attempt. She swallowed 287 Depakote. I would like to repeat that. 287 Depakote. I don't know how she's alive. I don't know at all how it baffles me. I don't know how anybody could survive that. She was rushed to the hospital immediately. Her stomach was pumped and she was put into a medically induced coma for 2 weeks. I was 17, and this was a huge pivotal point in my life because I had to confront these feelings that I had about her that I had refused to see. And please pardon my French, but I went into that hospital room. I visited her one time. I walked in, I looked at her sleeping body, and I said, please die. Please just die and leave me the fuck alone. Saying that out loud to her scared me. Scared me for me, scared me for our relationship. It scared me that I felt that strongly about somebody that I also loved, that I wanted her to just leave me alone. Because if she didn't exist, then all my problems would magically go away, right? When in reality, I had to really internally look at that, and I realized if she went away, then that part of her that was me, that I was embarrassed about, that I didn't want to be a part of me, that I was ashamed about, that brought me pain, that brought me heartache, that brought me embarrassment in the community, that brought me fear that I was going to become mentally ill as well and have a life similar to hers. If she died, that would just go away. It would be a ghost, is what I had thought. I am so thankful that she didn't. A year later, she married her third husband, Gordon. Gordon was a good man. He really loved her. They met in a mental health facility. And, during this time, this was in my 20s, my mom did not have a relationship with my grandmother anymore. Once I was no longer living with my grandma, their relationship completely dissipated. And it was me and mom and me and grandma. My mom hated my grandma, like seethed, couldn't even talk about her, which was very difficult for me because then I became the sole emotional support for my mom. She had guardians, several different guardians during this time. And, from being a lawyer to some of Gordon's family to a guardianship company in Nebraska that is no longer around, it just constantly changed. And often I was not listened to and not heard, yet I was the one that had to go to her apartment to make sure that she was taking her medication, or I was the one that got the phone calls, 10 phone calls a day, to her needing to get cigarettes or soda, or being stressed at her not getting her needs met and people not coming to her aid when she needed it. An example would be medication. She needed to take her medication. When she's on her medication, she is absolutely fantastic. When she isn't, she is one of the worst people I have ever met. When she lives on her own, she gets to choose whether she takes those medications. And unfortunately, with her bipolar tendencies, she likes that grandiose feeling. And so she chooses to not take them and stays up for 2 weeks straight, which then she has a 2-week crash and doesn't get out of bed even to go to the bathroom. I have cleaned more apartments than I even care to admit, and they have been absolutely disgusting. Yet, if medication aid, if I set that up and she doesn't open the door, they can't do anything. And I understand, but as a family member, it was very, very difficult. To make matters even more difficult, my mother left Gordon when I was 23. She always was paranoid that her boyfriends and husbands were cheating on her. So she left him. He was desperate to get her back. She didn't want him back. He would call me all the time. And finally, at 23, he successfully took his own life. So now, yes, Mina, did you want to talk about?
This is me, right? With the video?
Yeah, I'm trying. Sometimes my mouse likes to disappear and I
Are
don't.
you trying to unshare?
I am, yeah.
Okay. So I've been working on it behind the scenes, and unfortunately, Angie, I'm an elder millennial. So I'm going to admit it to everyone on the line. I'm an elder millennial, so I don't know how to do this preemptively. So post-emptively, after we watch this video, we're going to be split up into 2 groups. Group 1 is going to think about as if they were Angie's mom. And they are going to picture what the experience was like from their shoes and from Renee's shoes. And you're also going to picture what it is like to try and still be a mom in that moment, right? So group 1 is going to think about what it's like to be Renee in that moment, and think about what it's like to be Renee and still be a mom in that moment. Group 2 is going to think about what it's like to be Angie in that moment, and what it's like to be Angie and a daughter in that moment after we watch this video. And then we'll come back and we'll compare our perspectives, because one of the things I think Angie's teaching us really well today is how to live in another person's shoes.
Oh,
Did I
and
catch it all?
I do think group 1 and group 2, are we doing it by birth date or is it just?
No, it's going to be totally random.
Okay. And I do also want everyone to please take care of yourself. Do what you need to do to take care of you. I mean, there could be sensitive, sensitive material that could trigger something within you. So please take care.
We'll just do the advanced content warning. There's curse words and there's real life depictions of people with mental illness. The curse words are bleeps, but might be activating. Take care of yourself. We like you.
As I begrudgingly walk up the path to my mother's townhouse, I notice large photos of me as a baby that were once hanging on her walls, discarded on the front lawn and covered in broken glass. My stomach drops in this all too familiar scene. I whisper quietly to myself, "Shit. Here we go again." Hey, Mom. They canceled trash day, or did you just run out of trash bags?
I don't know, Ange. I've been vomiting my meds again.
I'm sorry. Maybe we should probably start.
Ange, what am I supposed to do? It's that Brenda. She's been running a knife up and down the wall, and she's been using the police to spy on me. I tried talking to Charlene about it. She doesn't care. Pretty sure she's in on it too. I don't know. They just keep poisoning me, and it's because they know my dad's God. I know that's why. They know, and they're mad about it because they want their dad to be God. So they're jealous. That's what they are. They're jealous. They're jealous.
Do you remember the last time you were able to keep your meds down? Maybe if you took your meds and had a snack, you might start feeling better.
Christ. Ange. Honestly. Well, I've been throwing up my meds, Ange. What am I supposed to do? They're poisoning me. Brenda and Charlene.
I know, Mom. I know. Do you think I could just let the cats in?
Honestly, Ange. Honestly, Ange.
I'm sorry.
Who the do you think you are? Coming in here, telling me what I need to do? Stop doing what the you're doing. I don't need you to pick up my They came at me and poisoning me, and here you are worrying about the cats. Off with your mouth. You are the devil's daughter. I know that. They've been telling me. I know that you're the devil's daughter. You can just go to hell. Get the out of here, Angie. I don't need you. You can off. What are you going to do? You're going to call the cops on me now because I told you to shut the up?
Oh, I'm real scared now. Yeah, you and that Brenda, y'all are just together in this, aren't you? Are you poisoning me too? Are you poisoning me too?
This wasn't the first time my mother had spoken to me like this. It certainly wouldn't be the last. Every time she did, and I'd muster up enough courage to ask her about it the next time we spoke, she would have absolutely no recollection of it occurring. She'd say how she would never talk to me, her sweet honey angel, like that, and almost laugh it off as some crazy dream I'd had the night before that included something equally crazy like dinosaurs and Abraham Lincoln. It's hard to put into words what feelings this would bring up in me. All I know is it felt like a very lonely trauma.
Just wanted you all to see proof that we do know a Joel Stevens. I'm just kidding. So what we're going to do, that was a lot, that was a heavy video, right? So we're going to go into 2 breakout rooms. I'm going to repeat the instructions one more time. Folks in group 1 will be with Angie, and they will be putting on their mom hat, and they're going to imagine what it was like to be Angie's mom in that situation. What would it feel like to have your daughter having to be the parent? And what might have been some of your concerns in that moment? Group 2 is going to be with me, and we're going to talk about what it was like to be Angie in that moment, what it was like to be a daughter serving a dual role. And yeah, we're going to have dialogue for 10 minutes. And you will receive an invitation to join a breakout room. When you receive the invitation, just click join at the bottom of your screen, and we will automatically be brought back together after the 10 minutes are over. So there's no need to click, do, change anything. We are experts in cyberspace travel, and we're going to take care of. Just please keep your hands and feet inside the Zoom vehicle at all times. All right, Alice. Open the door. Did it go? Yes. All right. We'll see you there.
Hello, welcome to our session. We just were assigned to breakout rooms, so I'll assign you to a breakout room, okay? Hi Alice, thanks for joining. We were doing breakout rooms, but we just have 2 minutes left. So when they all come back, or unless you want to join for the last 2 minutes.
Oh, I'm good. I'm sorry I'm tardy.
No, it's okay. Would you like to join for the last 2 minutes in the breakout rooms? Or do you want to just whatever you want?
I'll wait till you join because I don't want to interrupt people who are
Okay, then. Okay, you can hang out with me then. Sounds good.
Bye, Sue.
Thank you.
Okay, I can unmute now. How was your breakout group, Angie?
It was fantastic. They did such a fantastic job, really putting themselves in my mom's shoes and recognizing what she could be feeling and what a lot of people in similar situations might be feeling.
Just
And
because I think we're, yeah, sorry, I had a thought and it bubbled and then it went away. Go for it. What were some of the things that they said your mom might be feeling in that moment?
That she might be feeling judged by me coming in and picking up the trash. And, chaotic. One person described what I think is a fantastic exercise to help people understand of standing and having 4 different people talking around you and trying to hear what they're saying and make sense of it and not feel like you're losing your mind. So they really did a good job of recognizing her perception and how that's her reality, and how the difficultness of her wanting to make sense of the voices and then seeing me as an enemy or not, and just the dynamics of our relationship.
Our group had a beautiful conversation as well. I was writing them in the chat, so I'm gonna read them because it was just like, ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. Feeling powerless. This was the group that was talking about what Angie might have felt, that you might have felt powerless or helpless, feeling in flight or fight mode always, that you were trying so hard to be understanding, that at times, like if it were them, they might feel resentful, angry, calm, a mediator, fearful, burnt out. With everyone saw how you were trying to help your mom and she got angry. Your body language looked exhausted and you looked tired mentally and physically. And then someone said it was like a battered woman in a domestic violence relationship. Then we had lonely and damned if I do, damned if I don't. And a really interesting one would be the dual roles of being the parent, the child, the mental health professional, and the crisis responder. And then we got into a little talk about boundaries. And then we got sucked back into cyberspace, and here we are. You're fully caught up.
I love that. You guys nailed it.
I want to do a quick raise of hands. So if you'd like to use the reaction screen, reaction button, who needs a wiggle break? Because the second half of the story is real good. So does anyone need a couple minutes to get the wiggles out? Well, it's not, we're more than half over, but I feel the need for the wiggles. Anybody? I'm gonna get, well, now it's me and Angie. So we're gonna go have some wiggles. So we're gonna do 3 minutes of wiggling, and we will be back at 46 minutes after the hour. So depending on what your time zone is, this is your need scavenger hunt. What's a need scavenger hunt? You have 3 minutes to go nourish your body, mind, or spirit in any way that is meaningful to you. That might mean a bio break, a drink, read a book, hug a friend. See you
And if you can read a book in 3 minutes, I am super impressed.
in 3 minutes. 2 minutes left on your wiggle break. And there's a great question in the chat box from Stacy about the access to the recording. Yes, everyone, you will have access to the recording, but how will you wait until tomorrow to find out? Does Angie pick up the trash bags? Will someone feed the cats? This is your commercial break. I'm just kidding, Stacy. Of course, we'll make the recording available to you and Johnny's as well. And because time zones are really hard for everybody, no matter how many times you go to school, we mess up the time. And so we're going to be offering this again for anyone whose day was a little bit unexpected, and because Angie's awesome. So everybody wins.
Thanks.
Yeah.
You're like my hype girl.
One more minute. Yeah. Oh, I'm your personal hype woman.
I
One
don't
more
even
minute
know.
to get your wiggles out. Do a little kick, a little stretch, do a little wiggle.
What's really fun is my earrings, they wiggle.
Oh yeah. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Yes. You made it to adulthood.
How
Congratulations.
long is that song? Because that should be your official wiggle break song.
I'll look it up later.
If
It
it's a-
always reminds me of dolphins.
Hey, thanks, Abby.
All right. Ding. It has been 3 minutes. I hope that on this neat scavenger hunt, you were able to nourish some part of yourself. And now, please stay tuned for the second epic conclusion of how Angie became the awesome, incredible mom, woman, mental health professional that she is.
But wait, there's more. Okay, so my group talked quite a bit about perception. And I think that is so important for us to recognize as the reality for, a lot of the people that we serve. It is about their perception. I always think about different situations with my mom where she would say, that she'd be at a facility and she'd call me and complain that all of the staff are stealing her underwear. Are they? I don't know. And, because she is an unreliable narrator, it's very difficult for her to feel heard. It's also difficult for me to advocate for her because I do know that there is mistreatment in facilities. I do know my mom has been mistreated and I don't want her to be, but I also don't want to go in guns blazing and accuse somebody of stealing all my mom's underwear when it's quite possible she's just throwing it away and doesn't remember. Out of my grandmother's 3 children, Rex, Ross, and Renee, Rex is in the picture with my grandmother and I. He became my godfather. He also has schizophrenia, so I'm just surrounded all over. He does not have the bipolar piece, so his presents as paranoid schizophrenia. My mom can be a bit dramatic, whereas Rex is a little bit more comedic and more personable. He is unmedicated and nomadic. He does not, have a residence, but it hitchhikes, all over the place, goes to Hawaii and gets sent mainland and, all the things. When I was 19, my grandpa, Bob, passed away of a heart attack. And shortly thereafter, my grandmother and I took Rex to the Subway to get a sandwich. As my grandma gets up to go to the bathroom, Rex leans over and whispers, "Angie, you know how Grandpa Bob died, don't you?" Sure, heart attack. No. He looks around, super paranoid, making sure that no one is following him, no bugs under the table, and leans in and says, That's what they want you to believe. He was taken out by the Chinese mafia for looking too much like Buddha. Now, had I sat there and presented all of the medical documentation to prove that it was a heart attack, the autopsy report, argued with him left and right, do you think that would have changed his perception or his mind? Do you also think that it would have been beneficial if I had responded with, oh my gosh, yes, I knew it was them, and joining in and coming up with some plan to take out the Chinese mafia? No, I just said, thank you for telling me. Now, perception isn't always wrong, and I'm not saying that the Chinese mafia took out my grandfather. However, there is some resemblance if you really look at my grandpa. Look at, also, just so you know, that adorable little elf, yeah, that's me. My grandpa used to play Santa. Oh, also, my Uncle Rex knows a guy who can get you Tom Selleck sperm. So if anybody is interested in, you know, having that super masculine baby that you've always wanted, I'll connect you. So systems of care. SAMHSA's mission is to reduce the impact of substance abuse and mental illness of America's communities. The systems of care is how all resources, all services work together to wrap themselves around the family, the communities, the individuals, right? And it is such a fantastic idea. I think a lot of times the focus gets put so much on the big picture, and we forget to see the individual and what the individual needs are. We come up with this almost this one size fits all idea of what mental health is, what substance abuse is, that there are times where we struggle to meet the needs of certain individuals and families because they don't fit within this box that we have created for this program. I recognize the importance of having those boxes. We have to have guidelines. We have to have expectations for both workers and individuals, but it does leave us at a disadvantage as individuals requiring those services, as individuals providing those services, as family members of those in need of those services. I work at a school, and I can tell you that very rarely, as the school social worker of a behavioral school where majority of my children are state wards or involved in many services, very rarely am I contacted by providers in the community to work together, to collaborate. And it shocks me because I am with these kids 30 hours a week. And in some cases, especially with some of my state ward kiddos, at my school, we are literally the only consistent group that has stayed. Case managers change, therapists change, foster home to foster home. And yet this collaboration that should be occurring too often isn't happening in the way that would be beneficial to the kids. And it leaves these kids, you know, it leaves them having to repeat their story again and again and again. You have everybody's looking at the kid. They're all focused on the kid, but they're not focused on one another and how we can reduce the impact on individuals and on families. You have families who they have to go to 3 different agencies to get their needs met instead of just one. I have families where they have so many helping people involved, which is fantastic, except it becomes overwhelming because they don't truly understand the roles of each person. There were times where I was called their caseworker when I was the therapist, even though I had explained it, because the system can get confusing. Like I said about the individual, I know that the boxes are necessary for systems of care. However, I am a firm believer, and I'm sorry if this, is not something that anyone believes or if I offend anybody, but I am a firm believer that if I am doing what is in the best interest of the family, the individual, and I'm doing everything ethically, I'm not causing any harm, that I can sometimes deviate from that box. I'll give you an example. Fremont mom. She was a mom that I worked with when I provided case management for children that were having behavioral issues in the community. And she was that mom that, all of you heard like, ooh, don't talk to that mom. Or she'd go to an IEP meeting and yell at all the teachers because they're failing her child. Or she'd go to court and be in contempt all the time because she would just say whatever she wanted. She scared the crap out of a lot of people. Police knew her name. She lived on disability. Her kids lived on disability. She rented her house, which was a mess, and things all over. This is Fremont mom. Her youngest was my client. She refused to let me work with this kid because she would monopolize all of the interactions that we had together. She would make it about her. She would make it about the system. She would be the victim. And it was all of these things to where, even though my time was supposed to be spent with the kid, I had made the decision to carve out an entire afternoon. And I just said, Fremont mom, I'd like to come to your house if you have time, and I would just like to hear your story. And I sat down, and over hours, she shared her entire life story. I had no agenda. I wasn't trying to get anything. I wasn't trying to push anything. I wasn't trying to, make something magically change in her life. It was just, tell me who you are. We laughed, we cried, we bonded, but most importantly, for the first time in a long time, she felt heard. She felt seen. And, oh, am I frozen? Oh, there we go. And where that became important is she then allowed me to start making changes. She allowed me to make suggestions of how she could better interact with the helping professionals. I almost became her interpreter because I would witness, kind of like my mom's situation where she pushed the little boy down the stairs. Her intentions were to protect me in a very inappropriate way, but good intentions nonetheless. Same with Fremont mom. She'd go in guns blazing, yelling at all the teachers and principals and juvenile justice workers and therapists that they weren't doing what they should be doing for her son because she was trying to protect him. So when sometimes we stop and we take time to hear the people that we're working with, we remember why we chose this field in the first place. The bureaucracy makes us feel like we have to look at everything in this linear way, but I want you to challenge this thinking, because again, if you think it's in the best interest of the person, then do it. Sometimes I know that we don't have time and it's hard to be present when we are rushed for time. I can tell you, I would feel comfortable sitting in my supervisor's office saying, I'm late on this paperwork because I chose to see this human and reach her. Now, not everybody would be. And I'm not saying that, we all need to go quit our jobs, though. If you want to go quit your jobs and go picket, have at it. The system it has so many great things within it. But again, I can say, when I look at all of the times where I felt burnt out, where I felt overwhelmed was when I couldn't focus on the people anymore. When I couldn't focus on what I got into this field for.
I just
Lady
wanted to
Ga-
co-sign that so enthusiastically that I interrupted you to say how enthusiastically I co-sign on that
Mhm.
as someone on the other side, how just I could see myself losing the love I had for this career because of the bureaucracy. And it's hard because you go into it for reasons that are really meaningful and personal. And it seems to like get lost in billable minutes some days.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, think about when you've been scared because you've gone to the doctor because you're sick with something that you don't know what it is. How many of you have had doctors that don't really hear you, don't really listen, don't really ask your opinion, and just check boxes and say, well, nope, it's not this. Nope, it's not that. Versus how many doctors have you had that sit down and see you and say, I see that you're scared. Let me explain this. Here are our options, right? Because as humanity, we all want to feel heard. My mom wanted to feel heard, even though her reality was not something that I understood and not something that most people understood, and honestly was something that scared people. At the end of the day, she wanted to feel heard and seen. This is a homeless man who was given a rose by Lady Gaga. And she went to take a photo. And he said, but I smell. And she said, don't worry, I smell too. I love this because I feel like we can tell a lot about ourselves and where we're at from day to day based on how we interact with the homeless around us. Do we ignore them? Do we say they should pull themselves up by their bootstraps and they're just lazy? Do we always give them money and food? Do we take them to the gas station and buy them a meal and sit out at the park and hear their story? If we don't have money, do we ignore them and pretend that they don't exist because we feel bad that we don't have money? Do we look them in the eye, even when we don't have anything to give, and say, hi? So I think it's important that we look at where we're at. This fella, and I can't remember your name, who said that you lived in Las Vegas, but this was in Las Vegas. My husband and I went over the summer, and this is Charles Ray. Now, for those of you who may not have ever been to Vegas or haven't been there recently, there's a really large homeless population along the Strip, and it's easy to just walk past them and not see them, not acknowledge them, and just feel uncomfortable and hurry past them. Charles was sitting there and he was doodling, and I was fascinated by it. So I stopped and I asked him about it. He said that it is his interpretation of the Vegas Strip. He said he was an artist. He was born and raised in Georgia. He described himself as a simple countryman who doesn't like corporate but loves people. I asked him if I could see his art, and he said it was his interpretation of the Strip, and I don't like to show people. I prefer those who are interested to come see it for themselves. My husband and I like to have an original piece of art on each vacation we go on. We don't go on a lot, so don't worry. It's not like our house has wall upon wall of art. I wanted this. So Charles and I negotiated a price that I hope was fair. And this is now in my home. Just look at this incredible, detailed art that people were just in such a hurry to rush past. When we hurry through life, we sometimes forget to see the beauty. The beauty is in the moments. The beauty is in my mom's laugh. The beauty is in this homeless man drawing this. When we were trying to negotiate a price, I said, well, I don't want to offend you. And he said, well, this, my buddy says I should, not sell it for anything less than 300. And I was like, you most certainly deserve that $300. I do not have that $300. So we will have to part ways if that is where you want to land. But he was a beautiful person that taught me a lot in 5-minute interaction.
Just wanted to share with you my Renee gift and art. That was a drawing that your mom made. Or not that your mom made, that your mom facilitated. So just wanted to let you know I still have it. It's me, everyone.
I can't, it's not showing me you.
Oh, bummer.
I don't.
I'll show you know what it looks like. I'll show you later.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm frozen. There we go. Sorry, guys. I don't know what's going on. So, in the social services realm, we love acronyms, and I'm not trying to add an acronym. However, I do find them helpful sometimes. And I think sometimes when we think we can't, I don't have time, I can't do this because I don't know how to, I can't do this because I'm not supposed to, because I have to do X, Y, and Z. I can't do this, I want you to remember that you can, and it's simple. Can, connect, and care. Your only agenda is to see how awesome these people are. Less working and more listening. When we go in with this, oh, I got to ask all these questions and that's it, and I got to get through all of this because I have a time crunch. Sometimes we miss the people. We miss the stories. We miss the beauty. Authentic acknowledgement. Meet people where they are, free from judgment, accepting that their journey is their own, not where you think they should be. How often do we see where people are and we're like, well, okay, so doesn't live in the best place, so I am going to get housing resources for this person, or I'm going to provide them this connection and this service when we didn't even ask. And I think the authenticity is the most important. Be real, be honest. If you don't know the answer, say, I don't know. If a parent says, I need my kid fixed, yeah, that sounds like a fantastic idea. And I wish I had a magic wand. I don't know how to do it. And I know you don't know either, but guess what? I'm gonna be right next to you and we're gonna do it together and we're gonna figure it out, hopefully. But if not, at least we can high five about it. Need. What do they truly need in a situation? Not just what you're selling. So my program may not be the best thing for them. I as a therapist, I can't tell you how frustrated I am that so often the system goes therapy, 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 therapy for all these kids. When, yes, do I value therapy? Of course I do. Do I think it's for everybody? No. Is that really what this kid needs in this moment? Does that have to be the core ordered thing? Or is there another need that might better serve them? And network. It takes a village. We cannot do this job by ourselves. You need a team. You don't have all the answers. They don't have all the answers. They need a team. Connect them with their informal supports. Connect yourself with colleagues and get to know people in your community that you can better connect these families to when they have a need. I did say I wanted to tell you guys things that I wished helping professionals knew when I was younger. The first, it's okay to ask questions. I lived with my grandma. Guess how many teachers asked me what the reason was that I lived with my grandma? Not a single one. None of them asked. Perhaps had they asked, that would have given me an opportunity to talk about my mom. Keep bouncing off of it. Language matters. Caregivers, not moms, not dads, caregivers, because how many of our youth don't live in your traditional mom-dad household? How many of them live in foster homes? How many of them live with grandparents? Mother's Day is wonderful to celebrate, recognizing through your words that a mom can be who you choose. A mom can be a woman that you value. Let's make a gift for her. Too often, people would say, parents say, you know, daddy-daughter dances. What does your mom do? Things like that, that it made me uncomfortable because it wasn't my reality. And it made me feel like an outsider, even if I wasn't. Oh, man, too fast. Don't be afraid to talk about her illness and acknowledge how difficult it may be for me. Let's say you ask me about my mom and I say, well, we don't live together. She has schizophrenia and bipolar. That makes people uncomfortable because they don't know what to say, especially to kids. Why not just say, wow, thank you for telling me. How do you feel about that? What does that bring up for you? Well, it's really hard. I don't see her much because she goes off with her boyfriends a lot. And then, you know, she comes back and she doesn't always take her medication. Wow, that sounds like that must be kind of difficult for you. Do you know how powerful that would have been for my childhood? Just somebody to say, that has to be difficult. Because I didn't know the reality of other people's lives. This is what my life was. So I thought maybe I'm just not handling it the best. Maybe other people could handle this better. I think it's difficult because I'm weak. Offer me space and opportunity to explore my feelings safely. I had incredible shame. I loved and hated this woman. Who hates their mother? You're not supposed to, right? I did. And I felt ashamed and didn't have people who were able to help me process that, who were to say, your feelings are big feelings and they're yours, and that's okay. Let's work through them. And importantly, I can see and hear you. Often as grown-ups, we think that we're great at hiding our judgment faces, or that we're super quiet at whispering to our colleague about that parent that is very difficult for us to work with. And we're not good at that. And kids see everything. And it doesn't matter if my mom is a piece of shit and beats me every night. You talk about her, and guess what? You're now my enemy. And we create these divides because I am her and she is me. And I see this a lot in various environments. The fastest way to destroy a relationship is to bring judgment into it. And that's why it's so important that we check our own biases and we become comfortable with being uncomfortable. Embrace your own crazy. Embrace that which is dark within you that you wish never came to light. Because once you can get comfortable sitting in that darkness, then you can get comfortable sitting in the darkness with a child, with a parent, with a loved one. Thanks, Heather. I love the clapping.
I love it too, Angie. And I wanted to say that I love the way you said that, because having experienced a serious medical scare with my partner a few years ago, being in that chair and being told a bunch of news that you don't understand. Nobody worry, he's fine. But hearing a bunch of news and being able, and just not having even the capacity to handle it in that moment. And thinking about, especially working with kids, how often is the first time a parent has heard this information? It's the millionth time that they've heard this information, but maybe no one ever explained it to them. I had kids in high school that had been on an IEP since 3rd grade, and both they and their parents could not tell me what the acronym IEP stood for. That's a problem.
Or even why they were on it. As a therapist, I've had kids given diagnosis after diagnosis, and I then sit down and I'm like, hey, you received this diagnosis. Let's talk about it. What? What does that mean? Well, how did I get that? It's about the individual. We get too busy checking these boxes. Well, I need to diagnose them in order to get my billing, in order to get paid, in order to do my job, and in order to get them the meds that they need and the services they need. But we forget that this is someone's life. This is an individual. They deserve dignity and respect. And that's us seeing them and taking time for them. So my mom now, I can't remember why I put the hands in there except to just be like, raise the roof. Because my mom and I are doing very well now. But like the group that talked about my mom, or talked about me and boundary setting, I had to figure that out. I had to set those boundaries. I'm going to be honest, setting those boundaries for myself was difficult. Once I became pregnant with my first pregnancy birth, I had no problem setting those boundaries with my mom because it wasn't about me anymore. And I made it very clear to say, if you do not take your medication and I have any inkling that you have been off of them, you will not see my children. They will not see the mom that I saw. And so if you desire a relationship with your grandchildren, you need to stay consistent. She heard me. Now, my mom is driven by relationships. So that worked for her. That wouldn't work for everyone, but it worked for her. And she doesn't want to be alone. She wants connection. So she heard me. Now, there's been a few times where she's kind of slacked a little bit, but we've been able to get her back. And she has not had a psychiatric hospitalization in, I think, 10 years. 10 years. It's incredible. 10 years. I never thought that that would be possible. There's my mom and my grandma and my oldest of 2 girls. My mom and my grandma were able to connect again and start to get to know each other again and start to like each other again. We were able to build connection. There's my mom with my 3 oldest, my mom with the youngest. She may not have been the mom that I desired or the mom that I thought I deserved, but she is most certainly the grandma that my kids adore. They call her Grandma Nene, and they absolutely love her. Now, I'm not going to lie, the minute that she comes over, they're like, what did you get me? Because I told you her love language, gift giving. So that she always gives them some sort of tiny little gift that ends up in the trash, 2 days later, because it's broken or I stepped on it or whatever, but they like it. She and my grandmother and I, you guys can't see, but I have several tattoos. My grandma and my mom recently got their first tattoo. I say recently, I guess it was almost 3 years ago. But we got the lotus flower because the lotus is a flower that is created in murky waters, in muck, in this darkness, and yet somehow out of the darkness this beauty is born, is created, and sits on top of the water for you to see. And that becomes the focus instead of the dark, muddy waters. And that's what happened with our relationship. Yes, the darkness happened. Yes, this grief happened. Yes, this pain happened. This, struggle of connection between my grandma and mom, grandma and me at times, mom and I, and yet here we are, powerful women, connected and better than ever because we stopped to see one another and to hear one another. I recently had my 40th birthday, and my mom and I, we don't have conversations about my childhood often. I've brought it up a couple times. Usually it's met with her saying, no, that didn't happen, or her coming up with some sort of paranoid reason. Even in her right mind, she'll be like, well, at that time, they were accusing my brother of being God, and it was my dad. And so even in her rational mind, she'll explain that situation at that time. So I don't hash that out. We have a good bond, but I don't hash that out. She gave me probably the best card I have ever received in my life, and the best gift she could have given me. And it just showed me how far she has come and how far I have come. And I want to share it with you because it made me cry. It's the courage you took in the choices you made that made you the most awesome, beautifully gorgeous woman that you are today. I'm overly proud to be your mother and to have you and to have you as the most compassionate, kind, loving, understanding, and overachieving daughter that you are. I want to tell you, especially on your 40th birthday, that I will always love you and be blessed with you. You are also the most fantastic mother, and I am also so blessed with my grandchildren. Thank you for everything you do, no matter how big or small. Have a great birthday celebration and a very happiest 40th birthday. This is my family. I had an audio that didn't play. Yes, Mina, and I'm trying to figure out.
I was wondering where it was.
Let's see if it's here. No.
I thought it was on that
Here.
maybe first picture.
Oh man. You guys would hear her laugh. It's so important. Oh, darn it.
Well, while you look for it, I will formally close the storytelling portion of this conversation and open the floor up for questions, comments. There's so much in the chat, Angie. I forgot to bring my Kleenexes because I was sure I was going to cry this time because I've heard you, because I've known you for a decade and I've heard you tell the story a million times, but I did, and so I'm crying again. I'm not going to read them all out loud. But in case you can't see it, people are saying that thank you and how beautiful and wonderful and raw your story is. Feel free, folks, to unmute if you'd like. Ask Angie a question. She can't see the chat box while her screen is shared. She's using one monitor today.
Yeah, I mean, feel free to ask any questions. I am an open book.
Someone asked if you still have a relationship with your dad.
No. So I last I had seen him, I was 2.5, and he kind of struggled to have to like find me, reach out. It was difficult because in order to get me back, he had to have a lawyer in Nebraska and in New York. And he sent me a birthday card when I was 13, and I didn't understand the whole situation around him not being involved in my life. All I knew was my dad wasn't there to protect me from my mom. And I was angry with him that all of a sudden, 11 years after I had seen him, he comes popping up. And I had always had an intention of connecting with him when I was older, but at that age, I had thought, well, F you, Dad, I guess I'll talk to you in when I'm 24 in 11 more years. So it was about a year and a half later that I decided I wanted to have that relationship. I wrote him a letter. I couldn't find the card with the address to mail it off. And I was letting him know, how I was doing. I was starting high school and I was swing choir and all these things. And that was in August. And in December, he died of meningitis right after my 15th birthday. So I didn't get that card mailed. And I did not ever get to talk to him. That was my tipping point. We could have a whole nother thing about my naughtiness in my teen years. Oh, so much fun and terrible.
Thank you for sharing that, Andy. There was another question from Adriana. Did you have a time when you had to disengage with your mother because it was too much for you, and how did you overcome that?
I became angry towards her. So my 20s were spent like me being annoyed with her, a lot of them. She, kid you not, she would call me 10 to 20 times a day, and I would just ignore the calls until I couldn't anymore. I would give her the bare minimum. Luckily, my roommate at the time was unafraid of sitting in all of that with me. So I finally had some sort of support, and she would kind of act as a buffer or challenge me and be like, "You're being mean." And I'd be like, "Well, she's," so I would not answer if I wasn't in a space where I could handle her, because she sucked my energy. And if I didn't have extra energy to give, I couldn't do it. And I had to grapple with feelings of, if she were to try to or successfully take her own life, that it's not my fault. I had to care for me.
The thing is, what made you change your thinking to be able to re-engage with your mother, to be there with her, because there would have been so much resentment and hurt and harm. How did you kind of heal the harm so that you were able to then re-engage with her?
Mm-hmm. That's a fantastic question. I can tell you,
First time, because of your beautiful accent, but I like that question both ways. How did you heal your heart, and how did you heal the harm?
so one of the huge things, I told you the pivotal moment of me wishing my mom would die. And that, I think, really started getting me to look inward into why I felt that way. I very much like to know the whys of everything. So if I say something or do something, I want to know why. Why did I do it? Why did I say it? That led me into one of the main things that helped me was I always said my mom fell short of being the mom that I wanted, right? Because I had the bar here. My mom was never going to be capable of reaching that bar of what I felt my mom should be. She could not be the mom that I could jump into her arms when a boy broke my heart and find comfort. She couldn't be the mom that would challenge me to not give up and try again, when life got me down. She couldn't be the mom that I could have a conversation about. She scared me, and she could acknowledge it and say she was sorry. And that's not her fault. But I was angry with her for not being the mom that I wanted. And so once I recognized that, and I lowered the bar, not lowering it because she wasn't worthy of reaching that bar, or lowering it because, she was just less than. I lowered it to allow her to love me the way she could love me. And what that did was it freed me up to finally see the gifts that she had, to finally see the medicine that she brought to my life. For example, I didn't see how beautifully giving she is. She lived at a facility before I moved her to her retirement community a year ago. The facility she lived at had mostly adult Medicare and social services, mentally ill folks. So not the people who can afford the really nice places. These guys didn't have a lot of money. My mom, being a disabled veteran, luckily has always had a monthly income. So we would take her shopping once or twice a week. And she would go buy a bunch of supplies, and she would sell them or trade them or gift them to the guys. I mean, we had to buy pickles for Booker because he really likes pickles. And Tim really loves Little Debbie's, so we can't forget to get the Little Debbie's. And my mom would spend $120 at the Dollar Tree. I'm sorry, has anybody ever seen anyone spend $120 at the Dollar Tree buying 35 boxes of Fiddle Faddle because Sally really likes Fiddle Faddle and they're really enjoying it? She would buy a gallon of ice cream. And I'm like, Mom, you don't have a freezer to keep this ice cream. It's okay, hun. They just eat out of it right away and then it's gone. And
if you have a bunch of friends that you can smoke down a gallon of ice cream in an afternoon, those are the kind of friends that I need.
yes.
Pause for just 2 seconds because we're 30 minutes after the hour to let folks transition if they need to. Plug to anyone, self-care, night care, kid care, daycare, pet care, whatever. Okay. And I'm going to end the recording and then you can keep talking. We'll be here for 15 minutes for an after party. We're so glad you joined us. On behalf of the National Training and Technical Assistance Center, have a wonderful evening. Thank you and good night.